So there's two explanations for forgetting that we need to look at. The first is interference, and then we have retrieval failure due to the absence of cues. So interference first of all. Basically, this is when two memories compete with each other in LTM, resulting in one or both being forgotten, or sometimes a sort of distortion, a sort of mixing up of the two. And the proposal is the more similar these memories are, the greater the likelihood of interference taking place. Now, we don't tend to learn two different things at the same time. Chances are one memory was created and then the other, and that allows for two different types of interference. So you've got proactive interference, which is when an old memory interferes with the newer one. So we learn the multi-store model and then we learn the working memory model. They're not a million miles apart, so you've got two quite similar memories in your head, all these different stores, so you could mix them up. So proactive would be multi-store model knowledge creeping in. So rather than central executive, you might call it the sensory register, perhaps. Whereas retroactive is when a new memory interferes with an old one. So using this example again, this would be introducing the newer working memory knowledge into your knowledge of the multi-store model. So you might recall it as the central executive rather than sensory register or something like that. Okay, so fairly simple proposal, two competing memories. The more similar they are, the greater the likelihood of interference, and there's two different types, proactive and retroactive. That's basically your explanation of interference theory. Now, I'm not going to go into it on this video, but there's a study you can look at, small groups, more word lists, and basically those who had a second list to learn that was very similar to the first one, they made the most mistakes. Okay, so have a look at that. It's in the textbook in our notes from the lessons. That's your basic research support for this. Yes, you could raise a query, and this is a common query that you can often raise in memory research. It is artificial materials. It's not meaningful for the people, these word lists. It could be that in real life, where things have more meaning and importance, that interference might not necessarily happen in the same way or be such a substantial effect. So we do have to bear that in mind. There's also a short time between learning the two different types of information in studies for practical reasons. If people have come along to take part in your study, they won't want to hang around for ages, so it may well be that they're exposed to one thing, and then half an hour later they're exposed to another thing, and it's, oh yeah, interference occurred. Well, okay, fine, maybe it does, but in everyday life, that's not really what happens. Even with the two memory models that I talked about, you've got at least a day, if not more, in between them, possibly even a week in between them. So that's not reflected in lab research. So remember, you can always raise a question of issues with lab research, but you've just got to link it explicitly to the topic. However, having said that, there is a study looking at rugby players, and this basically shows that it's not the passage of time that leads to forgetting, because it was the number of the number of matches that players have played in between. So where somebody played a game, they were injured and then played another one, they would remember the previous game well. Where somebody else had played that game, but then played multiple other games, they would struggle to. They'd make more mistakes. So that supports the idea of interference. And that's good because that is real life. So that's answering our criticism. That's quite a nice little discussion to have going on there. However, these effects are only temporary, so it's not gone forever. It's not definite forgetting. Cues can overcome them, so you might have things mixed up or be struggling, but then a prompt, as we'll come to next, can help you to overcome it. And yeah, this does have practical applications as well, because if you're trying to prepare for exams with a lot of similar information, then maybe you need to think about trying to set it apart, be it coloured paper or the style that you're using, the pens, the format, something like that to set it apart to reduce the risk of interference.